Okay.
So once everyone is muted so that there is less noise, then we can again resume from wherever we left.
So you are the co-host now. You can mute anyone you want.
Right. Okay. So again, good afternoon. Just to continue, because there are a little bit of technical glitch as it is going on. So to just give you a brief idea about what it is being done here, is a week-long celebration starting from today, which is 14th of November, India's National Children's Day, and culminating on 20th of November, which is the World Children's Day. So during this week, we will have several discussions related to children, their issues, their challenges, their opportunities, and learn from different perspectives as well, from development practitioners, from civil servants who are implementing the policies, people who are designing policies, people who are advocating about child rights, and all that segment, which can actually, we can bring in together into 7 different themes, and including all leading organizations, UNICEF and others who have been also contacted for sharing their views and their suggestions for way forward. So this is kind of an exercise for 7 days, conceptualized by Honorable MP Sujit Kumar, to advocate and to position our work and also highlight our work, what we have been doing for the last 4 to 5 years. Our work, before I go to the introduction of our 2 dynamic professionals who have joined today to kick off the week-long celebration practices. So, Mr. Sujit Kumar, as you know, is now a current Rajya Sabha MP, a Harvard and Oxford graduate from both these distinguished centers of higher education in UK and USA. He has been with the government of Odisha for several years and working on different policies and convergence of that. He founded, before working with the government, he founded the Kalinga Kusum Foundation with several other friends and like-minded thinkers and intellectuals to bring the idea of the child-friendly constituency, first time ever to India, and create that in collaboration with UNICEF in Khandpada, which is a constituency we started with at Kalinkusum. We started with the former MLA Anubhav Patnaik ji. So that experience for last more than 5 years has been deeply, like we can say, deeply has impressed upon us, deeply has inspired us, moved us, that children are the core of anything that we want to talk. So without them, we cannot actually move ahead to talk anything, any public policy, anything on sustainable development goals, anything on a better society. So children are central to that. So Kalinkusum Foundation, which is a knowledge partner and civil society partner to this MP office initiative, we thank them and welcome them. Welcome Sanjit sir from Kalinkusum team and all others who have been working with Kalinkusum for the last 4 to 5 years. This is the background, and MP himself, Honorable MP Sri Sujit Kumar himself, has been a child right advocate. He is a trained lawyer and has been a child right advocate as well. So bring this 7 days will be a kind of a discussion to bring top voices and best practices, which will be at a certain point of time, little later, will be compiled as a booklet. And we're also planning to release that booklet at a later date when our experts have actually submitted their suggestions for way forward. So we are looking at the book title, Children and SDGs, The Way Forward. So today, the discussion is on the communication, which is central to, when I talk about children are central to everything, we're talking about everything that you want to do for children, communication is central. So in that communication, how do you communicate? Most often we find, if you Google or research, try to find out children and communication, you find parental communication, how parents should communicate with the children, how teachers should communicate with the children, but you find very little about communication. on how child rights should be communicated, how child education, educating people about child rights should be communicated, what should be done through advocacy, what should be done through policy making, what should be done through interventions. We not find much. So, but even for us, someone who is in the sector finds it difficult to find, it is equally will be difficult and daunting for someone else who is searching for that in public domain. So we have got two vibrant, dynamic, multi-sectoral experts who have been multi-skilled and bringing insight into this particular topic of communication. So I would like to introduce Manoj Tripathi first, who has been an expert on child rights, who has been heading the state resource center at the child rights. And he has not just worked for Odisha, he has worked for Odisha, he has worked for Jharkhand, he has worked for Jammu and Kashmir, he has been he was appointed by the LBS Masuri, that is Lal Bahadur Shastri Academy, that trains our IS officers and civil servants. So his work has been fundamental in many cases and very original in several other instances, and also cross-state, cross-national experiences there. So Manoj Tripathi sir, he was the state program manager of child protection Society of Odisha from 2012 to 2016. There for 5 years, he brought enviable energy and inspiring work, created a website which actually today also hosts those work that he has done. So I know personally Manoj Tripathi. I have worked with him along with different projects. He is someone who has been for a long period of time advocating for a Odisha State Child Resource Center, and also advocating for child counseling helpline. So he's someone who has um, uh, kindly consented to be part of this discussion and kick up the week-long program. And he is someone who is a child protection specialist. And I call him not just necessarily just a child protection specialist, I call him child rights specialist and specialist on children, because in doing so, he has connected to lawyers, connected to media personnel, connected to television channels, written several articles. So in a sense, he's a kind of young public intellectual who takes the matter of serious concern to the public and presents it to everyone as if it is actually, it's a cakewalk for everyone. Everyone can understand. So that is what our questions would be. So Manoj Tripathi sir, very warm welcome to MP sir's initiative on Global Development Dialogue. And thank you for kindly consenting to come here. Our model will be of this today's evening will be a round robin league, like you have been an anchor. So that is how we'll also start with some questions, and we come back to you again. So in my next is another dynamic kind of superstar of social media, who has been using social media for positive social change, behavioral change, who has been awarded for his work and recognized as someone who uses communication. He's a development communication professional, has been a consultant to many international agencies. He brings in a lot of energy, a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of insight, and a lot of practical ground level experience and exposure. So with that expertise, it is very important to have people like Manoj Tripathi, who has done work at the highest level of institutions, and people like Rudra, who has worked at the international, national level. So they kind of complement each other's work. And one has drafted several policies, one has taken that to the ground level. So Rudra is also a fantastic trainer. So Rudra Prasanna Rath, I will read a little bit about his biography. I have got a few lines. So Mr. Rudra is a prolific writer who writes frequently in different vernacular and web media on social issues related to women, child, and youth. So no wonder he is considered as a prominent expert on the issue of children, and works with UNICEF along with other event-related agencies like UNDP, UNICEF, NIPI, and WISDMA, like at the state level. So he has given his consulting services to several other national level and state level organizations. So Mr. Rath is an alumnus of prestigious of IIMC, that is in Dhenkanal, completed his postgrad diploma in the, and as a reporter, he started working at television channel, but he has shifted his base to development communication. And close to 15 years, he has been in social development and looking at the communication component of several flagship programs of different international institutions in Odisha and beyond. So welcome, gentlemen, to the week-long celebration and the inaugural session. We will definitely welcome in between when Honorable MP joins, and would like to request him to keep his message and introductory remark, and also share his vision, why he has actually conceptualized. So whatever I could understand from him, I summarized his vision. So vision is to build on the expertise that he has, his organization has, and his network has. And second is to create, like Manoj Tripathi and Rudra have already done, to create a compendium of best practices together and bring children again to the focus. And everyone who is watching, they will all know that Odisha is one of the pioneering states in India to have started a specifically dedicated children and gender budget. So those are very inspiring things at that moment. Before I go to the introduction, I would like to say thank you to everyone for joining, and urge everyone, please to share the message. We are also live on Facebook on both Kaling Kusum Foundation, which is a foundation partner of this initiative, and also on Honorable MP Sir's Facebook. Rudra sir, let me come to you. If you are able to switch on your video, fantastic. Or else, if you are able to hear us, you can be on audio as well. We are celebrating kind of completion of the 30 years of the Child Rights Convention. So broadly, where do you see, where has it brought us? It is considered as a monumental document that has created worldwide awareness. And in 30 years, there have been several achievements in this sphere. So would you like to highlight something that what has been your reading, and where do we go ahead from here?
Thank you, Professor Das, for setting the tone of this event. You have really done your job by introducing all of us before the audience. Indeed, I find it really a pleasant occasion to be among these panelists, to be among the intellectuals who are discussing on SDG and child rights. It's a double joy for me, because communication professionals, they hardly get a chance to talk about their own issues. They talk about many other issues, but the communication per se is always not ever always discussed in larger platforms or forums like this. So I'm thankful to you, to the office of the Honorable MP and the Kalinga Kusum Foundation for starting this weekly observance, and that too from communication. May I take the liberty to elaborate a little bit more about development SDG that we are talking about, because there might be some professionals inside this room who might have not be very sure about these SDGs and dimensions. So I believe I may be given a liberty of 2-3 minutes to discuss something about this SDG, and later we can really position our topics around the 4 walls of SDG. Talking about SDG, I'm sure many of us must have heard about SDG, where that we talk about Sustainable Development Goals. The acronym is SDG. This is adopted by United Nations member state in the year 2015, and this is a universal call to action to end poverty, to protect the planet, and ensure that all the people enjoy peace and prosperity. A timeline was set, and this timeline is up to 2030. So 5 years, we have already come across 5 years. So we have already covered 1/3 of the total time frame that was set, and we need to assess that what are the in which track we are running, and how much we have achieved in this last 5 years of duration. I'm sure most of all of us might be aware about the fact that SDG comprises of 17 goals, which are integrated. That means they recognize that the action in one specific goal is likely to affect the outcome of others. And development must balance socio-economic and environmental sustainability. When I'm talking about socio-economic and environmental sustainability, it is a very broad term, because what is social to you may not be social to me. What is economic to you may not be economical to me, and what is environmental to you, to a rich, is not in the environmental in the same context that we are poor or a people living far from the city. So creating a balance between these social, economic, and environmental elements is key to it. And we all need to see things of our goals of SDG in these three perspectives. So I'm sure all of us will be talking about it in a later phase of time. But for now, we must know that there are 17 goals in SDG, 169 concrete actionable measures that we can see broadly on the face of the earth. And out of them, 232 monitoring indicators are set for this 169 measures. Interestingly, if you are going to these monitoring indicators, let us all write it down in a bold letter and underline it, that out of these 232 monitoring indicators, 35, almost more than 12% of the indicators are directly related to children. So that is where we found children, the core of everything. 12, more than 12 or 13, almost more than 30%, around 30% of the indicators are directly or indirectly linked with children. So barring this sustainable goal number 9, 14, and 15, all other goals, 9 means enhancing productivity, 14 means your ocean, and 15 means the other goal. We need, barring these three, all 14 other goals are directly and indirectly linked to the children welfare. So this is where we need to invest upon that. When we are putting children into the center theme, into the broad landscape, into the inside the atrium of the SDG, we also need to see that the money we are spending towards children is adequate. That's a question that remains to be answered. Is it timely? This is also a question needs to be answered. And is it appropriate? That's a question needs to be answered. And I am sure many discussions are happening around these three questions. But there is also another pivotal question that we are missing. The question is communication. The question is, how do we really communicate with the community, with the other stakeholders, with the policymakers, with the program implementers? These are the real challenges, and nobody is daring to ask these questions to self, that whether the communication approach we are adopting, the communication tools we are using, the films, the television ads, the print ads we are preparing is really hitting the target audience. Are they intended to address the commercial aspect of our intervention, or is it addressing the social aspect of interventions? These questions need to be asked. How communication is essential? What are the current issues with the communication issues, and what are the opportunities that lies beforehand or before us? Certainly we will discuss more about it. But coming back to your question regarding this 30 years of UNCRC, where do we stand? Pathetically, if I'm cross-polling or interpolating the figures that is available with all of us, I am sure you must be knowing that most of the countries are not very seriously working on the indicators that can really reflect the status of the children on a global platform. Sincerely, the country needs to identify the indicators at their own level. Country needs to identify designs. And UNCRC, we have missed the MDG, Millennium Development Goals. We could not able to achieve many of the goals envisaged under MDG. And SDG, we have also spent 5 years of our valuable time. Now it's time that we all countries across continents be united to design, to look after the indicators, the source of data, the analysis of data. All this needs to be done, keeping children into the focus. And many times the amount we are spending today, or the amount we are spending towards programs, I'm panicked to say, I am disheartened to say, a large portion of the program money is spent towards program designing, and a little portion, a very meager portion of the amount is our communication professionals to spread on the messages related to the entitlements, related to the benefits of the program, to the marginalized sections. And there are other challenges. Of course, I will come into these challenges into the other part of my presentation. But for now, I can say that the allocation is questionable. The amount of money that a program official at communication point handles or gets to spend on programs is inadequate. And if the amount of investment is not going to increase, I'm afraid most of the incremental gains we are going to get out of our program units or out of the program interventions are not likely to pass on to the marginalized sections of the society. Professor Das, with this introductory note, I believe we should move ahead and see what type of questions that emerge during our discussion, and I'll be happy to answer audience questions more than to making it a dialogue rather than a boring monologue from my side.
Okay, but I think Mr. Rath has thankfully filled a gap that I had not asked, which is SDG segment, because he started with the SDG, then went on to talk about the money, time, and appropriateness of investment in there, and whether MDG, which actually couldn't achieve the targets in the targets assigned in MDG. So 5 years have been, actually we have crossed 5 years. So decade of action. So from Rath, what I get from here, the decade of action is here, 2020 to 2030, 10 years, what are going to do. Second, the Child Rights Convention, which is a monumental document to bring, develop children's centrality to society, has in a way has achieved a spectacular result many places, but has also spectacularly not achieved things. Maybe to not to mince words, I like the frankness of Mr. Rath, who says that there are countries which actually have not like prioritized those goals to be achieved. And third important thing what he said is that communication not being prioritized as part of the entire program design, intervention, implementation, impact in that entire ecosystem or cycle. Communication is not much prioritized. So people, with that question keeping in mind, I will come back to Manoj Tripathi, who has been someone who as I am privy to his some of his work during the 2012 and 16 that he worked for the government of Odisha. He has done some extraordinarily laborious work, and at the same time very creative work as well. So how he handled that communication challenge, I'll come back to that. But like the general comment on where do you see, as Mr. Rath commented upon, saying that we have a decade of action, we have to be very, very serious, and some are serious, some are not. In that context, where do you look at CRC 30 years, and where are we now after 30 years of CRC, and where do we go from now? Over to you, Manoj.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Kamala. And I'm thankful to Kalinga Kusuma, thankful to Honorable MP Sujit Kumar sir for inviting me, and I'm feeling privileged to be a part of this global development dialogue. Coming to your question, you have two parts to your question. One is, where do we look at us? Where do we stand as we have passed 30 years of the UNCRC, and as a nation, India, where it stands? I will come down to the states as well. Now, starting from your first question, I would like to say that I have seen I have experience of working with the policy level at the government. I have experience of working with the civil society at the grassroots, and I have worked with various other states inside India and some international parties. My experience is a basket of optimism and pessimism, the positives and negatives. The negative sides you have already learned from Mr. Ratha, who is a part of this whole process for last 15, 20 years. And I'll tell you some positive things on which we can smile on. And the positive thing is the change in the legislatory framework. Earlier, we had child rights embedded in our Constitution of India. You see the Article 15, you see the Article 39 EF, you see that the articles like 21, the amended articles of right to education. These were the embedded principles, amended frameworks, amended provisions in the constitutional framework. Child rights, the term was alien for some, but the meaning, the interpretation of child rights was there within our framework when we become a nation. Starting from there, when we ratified the UNCRC as a nation in 1992, from that time, you can see, you can experience a plethora of changes in the legislatory framework. Number one being the Juvenile Justice Act. Earlier, the Juvenile Justice Act was more focused on the child delinquent. Nowadays, we are not saying any child delinquent because of the Beijing rules amendments. But before that, that was limited to only juvenile in conflict with law or children in conflict with law. After ratifying the UNCRC, there is a huge change in the principles, the doctrines, the framing of the legislation. You can see we increased the age up to 18 years across legislations. You can see that we adopted the principles of child rights in the Juvenile Justice Act, and in the latest enacted Juvenile Justice Care and Protection of Children Act 2015, you can see a full chapter of principles. Those speaks about a line of principles of child rights. Now coming to other legislations, they are also changing, like the Child Rights Act. It was amended very, very recently in 2016-17. It also increased the age from 14 to 18. 14 to 18 is the adolescent bracket, and up to 14 it is the children bracket. And after that ILO convention ratification, we agreed that there should be no worst forms of child labor. So this is the legislatory part. Coming to the implementation and the execution part of the UNCRC. You see, after this UNCRC, we had the Commission for Child Rights Act at the national level and at the state level also, with rules. So after that, for all of the states, the state commissions for protection of child rights was formed. Before that, there was no commission for protection of child rights, which is a body which oversees and gives oversight to, like, Juvenile Justice Act implementation, Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act implementation, and Right to Education Act implementation. These are three cardinal legislatory provisions, statutory provisions in terms of ensuring child rights. There are many, many acts, but these are the three principal acts. So coming to the, after this Commission for Protection of Child Rights, coming to the implementation part, you can see now we have a full-fledged structure across the state, across the country, up to district level, and in some places up to sub-district level. We have a structural framework. Like at the national level, the MWCD is overseeing the whole thing, and the NCPCR is giving an oversight to the statutory assurance of the implementation. Now coming to the state level, we have Odisha State Commission for Protection of Child Rights, and the WNCD is the nodal department. There is a Women and Child Development Department, which is the nodal department for implementation of all kinds of ensuring all kinds of rights of children. There are 7 to 8 sister departments, line departments, home department being the one of the most important departments. They collaborate with each other, converge with each other to work towards a common agenda, to work towards a common objective to protect the child rights. We have also a Juvenile Justice Committee at the Honorable High Court level, which oversees the case pendencies, the resolution of the redressal of grievances that is coming under the child rights sector. Now coming to more specific to child protection, we have at each district we have a child welfare committee. We have 30 child welfare committees in Odisha, and so is for it is similar for the other states also. Now, Jammu and Kashmir is also coming to our fold. Earlier, it was having its own Juvenile Justice Act. It was having its own Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act. It was having its own constitution, but now they are abiding to the mainland constitution and mainland statutory framework. So what I'm saying is, in implementation level also, we are having a statutory framework now. Earlier we didn't have any. So now the things are changing slowly. We have a state level society under the Women and Child Development called Odisha State Protection of Child Rights, which is working since 2012, of which I was a part of. And within these last 7, 8 years, we have seen many changes in the front of rescuing children, restoring children, rehabilitating children. We have seen a growing, increasing awareness at the grassroots level. We have formed panchayat level child protection committees at each level. That is a 12-member committee having the Anganwadi, ASA, then the ANM, then the school teacher, which is a watchdog of child rights at the panchayat level. We have the structure now. What we require now is to re-energize it, reimagine the whole system, re-engineer it, and we understand where are the gaps, and we need to fill those gaps. We need to increase our spending on children. We need to create structures at sub-district level, at Gram Panchayat level, like any other program is having, like any other development program is having, like your wage employment program. It is having a cadre at the Gram Panchayat level, the Gram Rozgar Sevak. Like your skill development program, it is having a community cadre at your Gram Panchayat, that is the GPLF and the community resource person for community mobilization and the master bookkeeper. But unfortunately for the child protection, child rights system, we do not have a community cadre. So it is now the time to think on what we do not have and how we can further accelerate and penetrate the sense of protecting our children and creating a safer environment for our children. Over to you, Professor Kamla.
Thank you, Manoj sir, for providing a kind of a structural institutional structure and providing how the child rights protection and it all flows through. First, inspiration, definitely Indian Constitution had it, and then the CRC brought more focus at the global level, and then we have started, we have ratified and then started bringing in that into public policy for formats and frameworks. Thank you for bringing that. You kind of as someone who are like a bureaucratic experience of working with the bureaucracy, bringing that in government and also bringing that what challenges are there at the ground level. So thank you for combining both of them. We need those kind of insights. As we come to the second round of our discussions and questions, we'll come back to that definitely. And then taking cue from your answer, you said we need increased spending on our children. And Odisha has done something very interesting. I will come back to best practices definitely during our discussion. So Rudra sir, I would like to come back to, because you are a communication specialist who engages multiple mediums to engage with people. And for our viewers, he has been one of those crusaders of social media who has been recognized throughout Odisha. So let me ask you, how do you see that our communication, let's focus on either government of Odisha you focus or India government, it doesn't matter, but give us a sense. What is your understanding and insight that how are we communicating about children's rights, about their protection, about their survival, about their participation, about the bouquets that CRC developed and UNICEF has advanced. So how do you see, are we communicating enough? People say in the time of COVID, communicate, over communicate. They're saying now, as a communication professional, where do you see, are we communicating enough, appropriately, and identifying who is the beneficiary and reaches it well through translations, through different mediums, and different mediums can be a theater, can be anything that pleases, or cartoons, or booklets, or training people. I'll come back to that because I had some inkling with Manoj sir, who has done some interesting work while he was there. So I'll come back to that, Manoj sir, to you for your experience sharing. Let me ask to Rudra sir, what he thinks that whether communication, whether communication, I'm saying where has been the communication on, especially on the child rights issue. Over to you.
That's a very pertinent question, Professor Das. Very interesting also. It has also very interesting dimensions. We need to understand communication parts. It's not all about passing information. It's not like that Mamata scheme gives you 5,000 rupees of cash incentive if you are delivering to the inside the hospital. That's one part of the story. There is also another part of the story. Your communications be in a manner that it's not all about that creating an environment and passing messages related to government schemes and entitlements. That's fine. That's one point only. But at the other point, we also need to ensure that the people who are getting the information are in two sense. One, they understand the value of and importance of the message, and second, that they are actually in a position to message and do some action using that message or relying upon the message. What is critically missing is message to action part. There are enough messages. You see, before this COVID-19 struck, we have been teaching people, we have been letting people to go for during critical period, but just nobody listened. The growth of hand washing was not that incremental amount, the amount of money we have spent over a period of last 2 decades. But suddenly COVID-19 came and everybody is now almost aware about the importance of hand washing, importance of doing it for 20 to 40 seconds, importance of doing it through soaps or liquid sanitizer, importance of knowing the importance of using a mask. These are very critical life-saving messages that we have been advocating since almost 2 decades, but nobody just listened. That is, we need to identify what are the reasons why this has not been properly translated into action. We need to come to that point, and that is the crux of the discussion. That should be the crux of our discussion. The important point is we need to understand the communication platform of total communication platform of landscape of Odisha. There are so many tribals composition of people, more than 62 tribals, PBTG groups. They are having their own dialects, they are having their own way of looking at things. You go to Sambalpur, they speak a different kind of Odia. You go to Berhampur, they speak a different kind of Odia. You go to Sonpur, they speak a different kind of language. You come to Cuttack, Jajpur, they are into different type of messages or different type of. So you cannot just have a one size fit all formula of T-shirts, and you cannot hand over all these communication packages to this group of people in a very uniform manner. What you need to do is you have to customize your packages, and that is where lies the challenge is. In many tribal languages, you do not have the dialects. They do not have the written scripts for their languages. So even if you wish to pass on the messages, how do you do? There are the challenges because they don't have the language, they don't have the script. How do you pass on the messages then? That it is one of the critical areas where we lack. The second one is lack of trained manpower. The people who are passing out from different colleges in mass communication, they are not interested to delve into the psyche of development communication. They are more happy or more or less happy doing reporting for television or a print media. So more and more talented people should come to this development communication, and this should give us a chance to innovate, the chance to spend more on youth energy, the chance to spend more innovative communication approaches, which is also very much missing. Since long, we have not been able to come out of the psyche of developing a message, putting a poster in the walls of a community and coming back. That was what we have been doing since in the year 1960s, when the education, extension education came into picture, thanks to the agriculture department. But we need to move beyond that. You need to have a passionate breed of people who can talk about critical issues that affect critical themes that affect children as a whole. Until unless you get a good number of people talking about the issue at community in their own language, it is difficult to bring a lasting behavior change. Professor Das, you have been talking about over communication. I am a little bit hesitant to accept the term over communication, because I don't believe something like that ever exists. Because communication, if you are not interested to accept that communication per se, you can always quit and look back for newer channels or newer messages. But even if I'm telling the same thing again and again, if you're getting saturated over a period of time, I'm sure you are not going to listen to that message again and again. But in the context of thinking that we are going to over communicate, in the context of in the way of thinking that we may over communicate and we end up under communicating. That's also a cardinal sin we should not do with our community. Now a challenge of working with how do we communicate? Now the challenge is how do we communicate? What should be our communication approach? I personally always believe in one-to-one communication, interpersonal communication, which has a which has the cardinal characteristics of being physically close, being proximate enough to influence people. You are in a position to look at the body language, face index of the people. You are in a position to get their feedback response directly. But instead of investing more and more in interpersonal communication, of course, the frontline workers like ASHA and Anganwadi workers are nowadays being trained heavily on interpersonal communication, and UNICEF has been heavily supporting government of Odisha on this, and government national level also there are lots of efforts are going on to train our frontline functionaries so that some key indicators like immunization, like hospital delivery, like 3 or 4 ANC checkup improves, the indicators improve. But at the same time, we must be able to deliver on the culture of volunteerism. We need to create a band of volunteers at community level who are trained, who are identified, who are trained, who are brought up, who are been little bit mentored, and with this we can, I believe that we will be able to, we'll be in a position to make a dent in their existing behavior pattern. That is very crucial. But instead of doing that, if you are going to spread messages through mass media like television or print, that is not going to be a lot more beneficial. I'm just citing you an example. During this IPL season, when the IPL cricket goes on air in Max or in Set Max in other channels or in Star Sports, the per 10-second advertising cost of any corporate agency or corporate house goes up to 50 lakhs. So can really government thinks to spend 50 lakhs for a 10-second? I am afraid the answer we all know. We all know the answer. Government may not be able to spend 50 lakhs for every 10-second ad. Hero Honda can spend, Amul can spend, your n number of other commercial brands can spend, but government might not be able to. But what government can well do is to build the capacity of the existing structure. What Manoj Tripathi sir has already pointed out before me. The structure is well laid. We have got infrastructure, we have got institutions at bottom level. Now we need to spend on their capacity. We need to build their capacity by investing on them. We need to give them more trainings. We need to give them hands-on experience on the tools of communication. We need to sensitize them on the effects and impacts of these tools. We need to see that actually they do practice. Even if I'm going to tell you this is how you need to wash your hands, and I come to my home and you end up visiting your own home and you do not go to the community to demonstrate, the training is meaningless. So we also need to create a system whereby these people who are once trained on the communication with enhanced skill, they go back to the community and they start demonstrating the impact of communication. That is where the success lies. And I believe that more than 1 lakh number of ASHAs and Anganwadis taken together, if we are targeting the common people, the children, the decision makers at the community level, their parents, the other stakeholders, I believe it's going to rock, it's going to work. It's going to work. More we will be discussing on the impact of different forms of media, I believe, in the latter part of the discussion.
Okay, thank you, Rudra sir, because I think you made very interesting points that how communication and how much communication, whether over and over communication in the market. Since I teach MBA students at Swiss University, so my president, who is Rajita Kulkarni, she said that in this context of people working outside, means remotely, so most often people don't take it they should not take it lightly. So over communicate in the sense, you tell them that, okay, this is to be done on this date, please come back to line, and then call them. Then over communicate in the sense, you might send an email and send down in a normal case of thing. But when there is little, the new normal has come, so you over communicate in the sense, you use all 360-degree communication, telephone them, message them, call them and say that, okay, we need your this, we are doing this for you. So kind of that is in that context to just simplify that. So over communicate technically may sound wrong, because it can actually put up someone and say, okay, I don't need to listen to that. Okay. I think an important point what you made here is interpersonal communication. and not very easy in the context of COVID, but it is very important as a communication professional. I have a little bit of experience, not unlike, not like you, Rudra sir. For 15 years, you have been doing this. It's your bread and butter. You understand fingertips on the challenges and opportunities in communication. So I think the opportunity that you have highlighted and Manoj sir has actually articulated the structure, I think offers a lot of opportunity in creating either whether you call it culture of volunteerism, or you create a brand of people, or you call it the existing system of government, or the last chain of bureaucracy. So wherever they can, what can be done for them, what has been done for them, and where there are gaps, what can be done for them in the way forward. So in keeping this in mind, I'll come back to Manoj sir. And when you were the state program head from 2012 to 17, 16 for 5 years, you did some interesting, extraordinarily genuine and original work. So we would like to know, this is not just flattering you, but saying that we have been witness to your work. We have actually trying to review the work. So please share something. What could you do? What was the challenge? Question number one: what was the challenge to create that institutional framework which existed and to make it facilitate and make it work? What was the operational challenge? And second, what was the attitudinal challenge? Because we have attitudinal challenges. And I will again, when the next round of questions comes, perhaps I'll come to Rudra sir and talk to you as well. But behavior change communication, they call it in development communication BCC, or behavior change communication. So what are the operational challenge? What are the attitudinal and communication, attitudinal and behavioral challenge? And two, and three, what did you do to address to these two questions, to essentially overwhelming challenges? Over to you, Manoj sir.
Yeah. I joined child protection system in the government of Odisha in 2012. Before that, I was working with the public health ecosystem of the state. When I reached here in the state secretariat, child rights was like Greek to many years. It was quite difficult to decipher for them to understand, to visualize what child rights is. So child rights was a very alien subject to the bureaucracy, to the middle level structure, even at the district and sub-district level. So child rights is a very comprehensive structure, comprehensive framework, of which child protection is a very specific area where the most important role is played by the legislatory framework and the enactment side of it. So when we entered the system, there was not a single material that was available for child protection, though there were many materials available in the health and health and family welfare department, in the education department, and many other sister departments. But the main two cardinal departments, like home department and the Department of Women and Child Development, these two departments were not having any material to read, any material to circulate, any video or audio to broadcast, telecast, or any structure to reach to at the district or the grassroots level. So the first challenge was to write those, create those materials. So I was looking after the communication IC and advocacy part of it, training IC and advocacy part of the whole program. And I was collaborating with the mainstream institutional care and the non-institutional care part. And so what was my role was to first write the SOPs, write the guidelines, write the drafts, prepare the communication materials, the posters, the banners, the audios, the videos that you can now find in the website of Odisha State Child Protection Society. So that was created in a period of 5 years, and now when the first this material was created on child rights, If Swades can present that from the website. When the two posters of best interest of children and the rights of children, and these were two posters that was prepared in back in 2012 for the government. Then the challenge was how these two posters are going to bring a change, because this is a very minimalistic effort, and we do not see any support. We do not see any kind of medium to broadcast it, to make it reach to the people. So an idea of creating a community level, grassroots level committee came into mind. So yeah, please. So this is the website I was talking about. In the IC part, you can see many visual prototypes on different subjects of child rights and child protection. Yes, these two posters, 5th and 6th, were the first posters of WNCD department, 5th and 6th. Yeah. So the theme of this poster was best interest of children should be prioritized at all places, be it your family, be it your be it the school, be it the community, be it the police station or the bank or the urban utilities, anywhere, at the police station, the court. So then it felt like we were speaking something that cannot be achieved in the next 5 or 10 years. But if you go now to the field, at least people can understand what child rights is, or if there word that is child rights exists in the government structure, child protection. If there is a child protection structure that exists in the collectorate of his district, people are aware of that. So communication reaching people takes time, but we started from this poster, and we continued to create many visual prototypes, many audio materials, many radio jingles, many video materials, of which we made the audio or the jingles in local dialects also, what Rudra sir was talking about. We prepared all our audio materials in local dialects, so all region of the state can understand and can make use of the message that is being communicated. Yes, in the audio section. For example, child marriage in Sambalpuri or Desia, you can play one of it. The audio is not audible to me. Is it audible to everyone? No, it is not audible to me.
Not audible at the moment.
Okay. So let us come to our point of discussion. So when we created these communication materials, then the next bigger challenge was how we take these materials to the real beneficiaries or the real stakeholders at the ground. So we thought of creating these committees at each and every Gram Panchayat, having 12 different members from different walks of life, like from health department, from education department, from home department, the Gram Rakhi, the ANM, the ASA, the Anganwadi, 2 respected village members, the Sarpanch being the chairperson, and also 2 children for ensuring children's participation in the committees, 1 boy and 1 girl. So it was a 12-member committee. Now, after formation of this committee, the next bigger challenge was how to sensitize, how to build the capacities of these committees, because there was no flexi funds like the Gaon Kalyan Samiti or the Rogi Kalyan Samiti available with the government. So we thought of at least having one round of training for all the constituted committees at the Gram Panchayat level. So for 4 Gram Panchayats, one training was conducted in a cluster approach. So you can say for all the 6,234 Gram Panchayats in Odisha, we conducted 1,500 odd batches of training at the first round for Panchayat level child protection committees, whose role is to keep surveillance on the violence on children, abuse children, the likelihood of being trafficked, or if there is a real harm that is happening to children, then how these things can be reported, how these committees can stand as an immediate outreach system for the children in difficult circumstances, to reach to the CWC or the nearest police station or the district child protection unit that is functional in each district of Odisha. So a first round of sensitization that took us around like 2 years to do the first level of first round of training for all the 6,000 Gram Panchayats of Odisha. Now, after this training, I can say that yes, at least each and every Gram Panchayat, in each and every Gram Panchayat, at least there are 10 or 12 people who understands what child protection is. And we started getting results in the 3rd year of its constitution. Many cases of child marriage were reported to the police, were reported to the Odisha State Commission for Protection of Child Rights. Many cases were reported, many violences and many trafficking cases were reported to the district child protection units. And I am proud of these district child protection units, which is which works with professionals hired from open market as contractual workers. They're very proactive and they immediately reach to the place with the police and rescue children. And we have the data of rescuing. I do not have the exact data since I am not in the system for last 3 years. I think you have invited Mr. Pritikant Panda, who is my successor in the post. He can tell you the exact figure, how many children in the state, within the state, are rescued from difficult circumstances. And we have a history of rescuing 500, 600 children from outside the state where they were engaged in prostitution. They were engaged in mica factory and bangle factories, these explosive factories, many hazardous works. So I can say I cannot claim that all my materials that was developed by me, the 17 resource materials, reading materials I have published, and all the 20 visual prototypes, all the 20 or 30 audio materials, all the video materials that were 100% productive. But yes, that was able to bring a small change in the lives of children, those who were living under difficult circumstances.
Okay, so thank you, Manoj sir. I think you made an interesting observation of first round sensitization to close to 6,000 GPs, and reaching out to this gargantuan big number, and systematically reaching out and providing information, translating them into Odia and creating jingle, and those materials are available there. So many of the people who might be researching on children will find it very, very useful. And
Professor Das, all the materials, those were created for the grassroots level, was originally made in Odia. That was not translated from any national version of it.
Right.
That was created by us, and that was originally made in the vernacular itself.
Right, right. So it actually has taken the sensitivity of the community in mind, and maybe you might have. I have not gone through the materials in detail, so I'm sure that you might.
Yeah, that is available. Some of the materials those are available in the website.
Right, you might have used examples from the local context and the words that are right pronounced and or spoken in the context of a particular community or particular kind of. Rudra sir was talking about the diversity that exists in our in our state of dialect and the spoken style. So this is very
I
interesting.
can just let me add one more sentence to what I have told.
Yeah.
This was the experience of state of Odisha, but I have worked with several other states in communicating in communication in the field of communication, or reaching to the actual children, actual beneficiaries. Those are children, parents, and the communities at the grassroots. I was instrumental in creating a pool of volunteers in the state of Jammu and Kashmir, and in some districts of Jammu itself, Samba and Kathua and RS Pura. So there, the issues of children or the vulnerabilities of children is very much different from the state of Odisha. There, the main vulnerabilities are like children affected with cross-border conflict with the state of Pakistan, the country of Pakistan, and people those who are the children those who are orphaned from those parents, those who are living in the border areas. In those cases, the communities never wanted to adopt those children or take those children to their homes under kinship care or under foster care. Adoption was not applicable to the state of Jammu and Kashmir, given their own constitutional framework then. So there was a blatant need of creating a cadre at the grassroots. So we thought of creating a community level volunteers. So we could not find any suitable quarters. So we thought of creating student volunteers there. So we targeted the Central University of Jammu, and we created a volunteer pool of 300 volunteers in the in 2-3 districts. So after creation of these volunteers, now we are listening that these volunteers are very much active in the field. Not all, but some of the volunteers are very much active in the field, and they are reporting the cases to the DCPU at Samba, Kathua, RS Pura, and some other parts of Udhampur also. So what I'm trying to say is investing in communication, investing in the structural framework never goes waste. So we should be, that's why I said we should be rethinking, reimagining the whole process. We have what we have created, we should re-engineer it and make it more vibrant, more energetic. Right.
I think that there both our experts are converging, saying that there is a lot of requirement in investment and also purposefully doing that. Manoj sir, you talked about also child protection. If you open any day the newspaper, you'll find some child somewhere being subjected to suffering, subjected to beating, subjected to some form of violence. And this is not very uncommon to know that children are suffering. Some data of the World Health Organization says close to 1 billion children around the world suffer from some form of violence. Right? So when such form of violence exists, my one is a theoretical, conceptual, and moral question. Children continue to suffer from several forms of violence. How to minimize this and eventually stop this, eliminate this? Is this impossible? So I will come back to Manoj sir, definitely. Let me go to Rudra sir and say that in child protection, law plays an important role, sensitization plays an important role, and perhaps, I don't know, in communication we call it input, process, and output. So what is the missing thing that we still see children suffering, and children are considered divine agents, like representatives of divinity? We call them all names, Bala, Gopal, or whatever we call them. So there are many series on television in India being celebrated of childhood of Krishna, Rama, Shiva, and Ganesha, and Hanuman in the context of the Hindu society. But why we see children being subjected to suffering and subjected to violence? So do you think communication has any role to play in talking about acts and laws and the penalizing possibilities, or there are judiciary needs to be proactive, or society needs to be proactive, or education institution needs to be proactive. So where do you see, as a communication professional, that the fault lies? Over to you, Rudra sir.
No, Dr. Das, it's a question that grapples me also at times. Is it really possible to put a full stop around the issues that children across the world are suffering? It's not that the third world countries, the children are only exploited or they are cornered or marginalized. When you see the children are also being exploited in different forms, in also in developed countries, the common perception is the third world countries children are exploited. Even in the you can see the in Europe also, in the some of the more in richest countries also children are also exploited. So the perception is not that only children in the third world countries are affected. The children are affected, children are exploited, children are marginalized, children are challenged everywhere in almost all countries in some form or other. So now where lies the gap? How can we stop this? This is a big question. This is in fact $1 million question that everybody in the world at present is searching the answer for. Can we really make our world order a better one for our children? If yes, who are to be made accountable? How can we do it? You can see you must have seen the issues of the sordid case of Nirbhaya. We have seen it. Few years after, we saw one more just few days back, one more in Delhi. And the girls are still brutally raped. The girls are still being followed. Sexual violence is on rise everywhere. So how can we really put a full stop around the issues? That's a compelling question, and that's really a psychological denting question for all of us. Being a parent, I am concerned. Being a social activist, you are concerned. Being everybody in the world is at present concerned. So now I would like to come to a specific model called socio-ecological model, the model that takes into almost 5 segments of society that needs to work in tandem with each other, in close coordination with each other, in a more synchronized manner, more harmonious manner. Now, who are the elements? One, the individual, the core person. The second, the house members or the home members of the individual. The third, the institutions like the schools, the medicals, the Anganwadi centers, our police. The third one, this is the third important sector. The fourth one is our policy makers. The policy makers, we are talking about the policies, the policy practitioners. These come into the fifth layer, and in between the home and the institutions, there is another one that is called neighborhood. So we all need to be on single plane. We all need to talk about the issues. For example, most of the children, I would like to go a little bit deviate from your question and cite an example. Many of the Indians, they are not sure that this abortion during pregnancy is a legal activity. I'm sure most of you must be aware about the thing. Abortion during pregnancy is a very legal activity. If you are unwantedly, you become pregnant, you can go to any hospital, but it should be the fetus, the age of the fetus should be less than 20 weeks or so. But you interact with common people, they are so fear of abortion that they do it with any term they can hurry, and in the process they either damage their own health or they get killed even. So we need to talk about these issues in larger context. People are not, the girls in the villages are not able to talk, they are not talking about menstruation or menstrual hygiene per se at last. वो बात ही नहीं करते इसके ऊपर. So until unless you talk about the issue, until unless you converge the community around the issue, you are not going to get success. So the basic question is, we all need to, someone, you can see the survivors, the sexual harassment, the person who suffers from sexual harassment or the rape survivors, she needs to move from pillar to post for a test, for a checkup, for our testimonials, for our evidences. And now government came up with a one-stop center called Sakhi that is there in almost all medical setups, where they provide one-stop solution to a rape survivor. But now the question is, how many of our people at the community level knows that there is a center available and we can get medical legal support services from these centers if we approach them? People tend to end up bathing their babies. People tend to end up bathing their babies once the rape happens, and that really tampers, destroys all the evidences. So people need to be sensitized on these key entitlements and schemes. The way people are talking about the 1 rupee ration or 1 rupee PDS rice, people should equally talk about this Sakhi setups. People should equally talk about nutrition. People should equally talk about immunization and importance of immunization for a child. But unfortunately or fortunately, we are not able to, as of now, could able to create an environment where we drive more and more people to join voluntarily to these discussion forums. You can see it in today's forum. There are only 115 or 17 people are there in the today's platform, because I know the subject is not that enticing to engage more people into this platform discussion. Until unless you create more opportunities to talk about the issue, until unless you more and more people join the platform to discuss, until unless there are more noble souls joining the campaign, I'm sure things are not going to change soon. We need to create a sense of urgency among the people. It's not all about that you come out with a candle and do a silent protest in a social media, black your skin once a rape happens. But at the same time, you need to be conscious enough during non-rape days or during this, the days where not such event happens. You need to be consciously talk about the issues, the entitlements, the benefits, the different schemes, and what should do if a rape survivor comes, where should a rape survivor approach. So violence against children is a heinous crime, but still, as Mr. Tripathi has already pointed out, there are a lot of infrastructures available to address these issues. There is a called help women and help desks, women and children help desks in almost more than 100 or more than 100 police stations in Odisha, where a specific desk officer will be there who is a woman who receives your complaints related to women and child. But how many of us know about it? How many of the common children know about? How many of the common citizens know about it? So until unless people themselves know about the issues, people themselves know about the entitlements or benefits, people themselves know about start discussing about the topic, it will be difficult to, even if we reach 2030, most of the SDG goals are related to children. I am afraid we might not be in a position to reach the peak. So my point is, you need to tap up newer platforms like social media. You need to constantly talk about the issues. We never talk about the malnutrition issues in other normal days. We never talk about sexual violence issues during normal days. We only talk about the issue when it comes as a breaking news in a television channel. We never discuss about gender inequality. We never ever, because until unless it comes as a breaking news. And you see the national channels, how much time do they devote towards discussion on gender issues, on malnourishment, on poverty, on access to services, on access to legal systems. You will hardly find any shows about this. 90% of the shows are directed towards how prime time debates are towards religion, towards politics. These are the core subjects of our discussion. So we need to ensure the national prime time channels at family level, at community level, in our informal formal discussions, we talk about these issues that affect children. So that I believe that should be a talking point for all of us after this discourse is over. We must, at individual level, wherever we get a chance, we must talk about the issues in formal or informal meetings. Over to you, Mr. Das.
I think, Rudra sir, you have made some interesting points here that actually people, see, this is Rudra sir, let me play a little bit of devil's advocate. Normally, we blame people. That is one. Second is, in public policy, we call that the person who is powerful must take the highest responsibility. So more powerful you are, more responsible you are. With more power comes more responsibility. Right, that is one. Point number one. What happens is that we normally, for example, let's look at, because Manoj sir is representing a kind of a government story, telling that what government has done through a little bit of initiative and intervention. So kind of evaluation we're perhaps not doing enough. Right. So we're not doing enough evaluation of where we're falling, because convenient, it's little, see, I'm not saying that you have said this, I'm saying I also blame that लोग मूर्ख हैं, वो वोट नहीं देते, अच्छी सरकार कहां से आएगी? लोग बच्चों के बारे में नहीं जानते, लोग ट्रैफिक रूल्स नहीं जानते हैं, तो एक्सीडेंट होता है. So it is one side of the analysis. Yes, true. Look, let's little bit ponder over. We call it behavior change communication. So because development professionals, say you and public policy experts like Manoj Tripathi, they actually make plans and programs how people will respond to that. This is one thing. Second is I completely buy your argument saying that mainstream prime time slots are actually not ever dominated by issues that actually matters to the world, whether it is sustainable development goals or children, other than women and violence against women, actually, that draws attention definitely. But it is not in the sense of urgency that what needs to be done. So those discussions are not there. So at the same time, they talk about violence against women and also objectification of women and men both continues to go on through advertisement and other things. So those are certain things we need to ponder over and perhaps dwell upon as well. So Rudra sir, my small query is, as an analyst, as a development expert, how do you see a role of the powerful? Let me talk about powerful means there are three powerful structures, powerful number structure number one, which we call it sector one, first sector, which is government, second sector, which is industry, third sector, which is civil society and non-profit organizations. So let's go to media at a different level. So these three sectors, first, second sector, third sector, do we see an urgency? I have not seen an urgency from corporate organizations on children. There are very little fund invested in children's CSR. So that is a lot more required there. So CSR and children, if you do a little bit of research, you find very few examples. There are the examples nonetheless. In government, there is a dedicated department, there is structure, as Manoj sir is telling, and there are requirements of creating that kind of urgency definitely there. So do you see any problem apart from people? People are citizens and they have a definite responsibility for their children as well. Apart from that, do you see as policy makers, as policy implementers, as policy facilitators, do you think there is a gap?
Professor Das, let me put it very straight on face of the discussion that when I say that people there is hardly any discussion about the subject on child exploitation at home, I necessarily do not point out people as culprits. I never ever dare to put my gun on their shoulder. What I intended to say, even in a government democratic setup, is the moral responsibility and obligation of the government to empower people. If you are sending a message in English and people are not able to understand it in English, and they are not getting access to the information, it is not people's fault. It is the planner's fault or the policymaker's fault, because they believe, because we believe that by sending a message, our job is done. But in reality, the job is never done. It's not the people who have to be blamed, it is the policymakers have to be blamed, because one of our moral obligation and the moral responsibility is to empower people so that they understand our way of looking at things, or our way of passing on the communication. So I beg to differ on you from this point that it is people's responsibility. I believe we at some point have failed or overlooked the people's real requirement and need. That's why we are not able to make a dent on their behavior, and that are required to be changed or required to be modified or re-engineered, as Professor Manoj as Mr. Manoj has rightly pointed out a few minutes back. We have to re-engineer the process. We have to go back to our own drawing board and have to re-look into the things. We need to develop a sense of urgency among the policymakers. We need to develop a sense of urgency among the legislators to see if the policies we are making, if people have their consent on it or not, whether people understand the way we look at the things, or they have their own different perspective. The one thing we should be blamed, because till now we have been developing one size fits all formula for every corner of society, communication plans for every district, but that is also not possible. In Anugul, you can find a language. In Sambalpur, you can find a language. For example, in Koraput, if you go to Koraput and Nabarangpur, the influential policymakers, the decision makers are the tribal headman. And how do we have a convention with them by taking this tribal headman into the account? I'm afraid not many government programs have taken their prominence or taking their presence into consideration. So we need to see that who really matters at the community level. Why cannot community, the tribal community, they are a united, they are united. They are not like us. There have been not many opinions. There have been very unanimous hegemonous body, hegemonous body. So we need to see that how can we really influence them? How can we really make them understand the benefits of those programs and schemes? Many places in UP, the immunization related to polio, they find a bottleneck. They find a they do not find a much bias in certain pockets of UP, and to influence those people, government of UP went on to extent of influencing their religious sets, influence the religious sets. The religious sets after got trained from the government officials, he went on to counsel the people, and that example also is abundant in our own Nuapara. I have seen many people are not interested to go for immunization, and we have successfully converted them by picking the religious sets into our own scheme of things. So my point is that we also need to invest on our own capacity, on our own policymakers, that the policymakers should be more pro people, more people oriented, more sensitive, and they must be in a place to see things from different goggles. We cannot wear a simple all color glass and see the things in a single spectrum. No, that is not going to work. So my point is, we also need to see how our communication works, how much money we are spending to sensitize our own policymakers. That is also an important point of discussion.
Yes. Thank you, Rudra sir. I think those are very pertinent points. And the point of discussion, debate, and disagreement is this only, that we actually come out with a little bit of stemming this to the center and try to find out both sides of the story. So in between, before I go to Manoj sir, Manoj Tripathi, let me welcome Honorable MP sir, Sri Sujit Kumar, to the House. And as I have already introduced, Sri Sujit Kumar is a Rajya Sabha MP who has conceptualized this global development dialogue to take forward discussions on local, national, and international socio-political, economic, and environmental development. So in his mind, he has a great interest in taking this forward to engage Odisha's intellectuals with the national level and global level. So these are initial days of our discussion. This is the second in the series where we are discussing this Children's Week. On the first topic today has been children, SDGs, and communications. Sujit sir, Rudra sir, and Manoj sir have taken three rounds of their own the point of view on the issue, and we would like to know from you a little bit of why you conceptualize this platform and what you intend, what we as at the MP office intend to achieve from this Children's Week. Over to you for your message.
Thank you, Kamla. Is my video on? Am I visible to you?
You are visible, sir. You're visible and audible.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone, and let me thank Professor Kamalakant Das, Swadesh, Sunil, Sanjeev, and everyone from my office for brilliantly carrying forward this discussion, development dialogue discussion series. This was conceived less than 2 weeks ago as a platform to bring different stakeholders from across the globe to have a meaningful discourse on issues of contemporary times. Some of you might know that we had hosted a Kalahandi dialogue in 2018 in Bhawanipatna of Kalahandi district. The idea was to bring leaders from civil society, academia, from the political sphere, from bureaucracy, and so on and so forth, to Kalahandi to deliberate on issues pertaining to development and to see for themselves the great strides that Kalahandi has taken in the last 2 decades. And the idea was to have the second edition of the dialogue this year in 2020, but given the constraints of COVID, we were unable to host the second edition of Kalahandi dialogue. And this is in a way, I wouldn't say it's a replacement to the dialogue, Kalahandi dialogue, but it's in a way it's complementary to Kalahandi dialogue. And it's heartening to know how we have all become so used and accustomed to technology in such a short while. In just a couple of months, who would have imagined that all of us would be so comfortable discussing issues on Zoom? And I think that is one of the most positive aspects of this crisis, this unprecedented crisis that we are all witnessing since last 8-9 months. So I'm very glad that this dialogue has gained momentum. This is the second edition in the series, and there is a lot of interest. I see Avinash, Rishikesh Babu, and then many others from Kalahandi district participating in this as I speak. Some of them were there in the last edition as well. So we plan to host at least 2 or 3 meaningful discussion every month, and on topics as diverse as grassroots developmental issues, geopolitical issues, issues pertaining to different districts of Odisha, issues pertaining to Odisha, issues of national and global importance. The idea is to really, pick the brains of societal leaders, of people who have something meaningful to contribute. Because I do not know on many topics. I'm not an expert on every issue, on every subject. So the idea is to learn from you all. The idea is to bring a diverse group of experts on various issues, and to gain some knowledge, some wisdom from you all, so that that will help me in bringing about some meaningful change, I hope, over the course of next couple of years that I'm a member of parliament. And for that reason alone, I thank you all. And then this is going to be a very free flow, open discussion platform. There is no hierarchy really in this global development dialogue series, and I urge all of you, request all of you to participate in all the deliberations that we will be hosting over the next 1 week or so, and subsequently we'll let you know whenever the next series in the next dialogue in the series will happen. The topic for this week's discussion series is SDG and children. SDG, as you all would know, stands for Sustainable Development Goals. The UN has charted these goals, and the idea is to, after the Millennium Development Goals, the MDGs, which got over in 2000, in the year 2000, the SDGs were instituted with the idea to bring about sustainable development. I mean, the name itself conveys the meaning in the globe, and member nations of the UN are expected to follow the 17 odd goals that the SDG proclaims. And Odisha also has very actively supported the goals, and government of Odisha already, most of its policies are aligned with SDGs. Most of the policies of government of Odisha are aligned with SDGs, and we are now trying to localize the SDGs. How the goals can be implemented at the local level, at the panchayat level, at the village level, at the block level, and no category gets more affected by the SDGs than the children. The children, as we all know, they do not vote, hence they are not a vote bank. Hence, oftentimes, or at least I would say sometimes, they get neglected by the mainstream political parties and by the mainstream political leaders, because they do not form a complete vote bank or a vote block, and oftentimes the issues pertaining to children are neglected. So the SDG goals really affect the children the most, in a positive way and a negative way. If we really diligently follow the SDG goals, then the children would be the best affected in a positive way. And if we do not really follow the SDG goals, then the children would be the worst affected in society. And hence, when we are celebrating the National Children's Day on the 14th of November and the International Day for Children on the 20th of November, we thought, what better opportunity than now to talk on issues about children, to talk about their rights, to talk about their entitlements, and the roles and responsibilities of all the stakeholders, most importantly of the elected representatives, of the public representatives, MLAs and MPs in upholding the rights of children and protecting and enlarging their rights. And this is why we are um, hosting this development dialogue series on the issue of SDG and children. So I, on behalf of the office, I welcome you all again, and thank you all for being part of this wonderful discussion forum. Really lot to learn from you all. And if you would like to, Professor Das, I would request you to give opportunity to everyone to share their views and thoughts, because I see almost everyone here I know personally, and I know that all of them, each of them has something very meaningful to contribute. So please, I would, or we would love to hear from everyone, and thanks again for doing this. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable MP sir. This is interesting because we have been guided by your vision and your conceptualization. As you are a member of the Standing Committee in the Parliament of Rural Development and also in Ministry of External Affairs, and you're also associated with the Parliamentarians Movement for Children. So in that, we also, whatever key points emerge out of this, they will be compiled from the office for your reference and also taking it forward. So we will invite our speakers again if they are required to make a presentation to you personally. If you like some of them, we can actually think of that as well at the next later stage. So going forward, sir, I would like to have a permission to go to Rudra sir. He is.
Please carry on.
Yeah. Yeah, Rudra sir is about to leave for another program. So may I request you to make your final comments and on the topic and whatever you want to say as your message before you leave the house. Rudra sir, are you there? Okay, he might have logged off. So coming back to Manoj sir.
I'm there. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
So it's indeed a pleasant experience on my behalf to be a part of this August gathering. I sincerely express my heartfelt thanks to Kalinga Kusum Foundation, Honorable MP Mr. Sujit Kumar's initiative. I wish this initiative a large success, huge success, and I'm thankful to you for the way you have carried out this deliberation in a very nonchalant way, and I really appreciate the way you have been handling this in a very professional manner. My wishes are also to Mr. Manoj for sharing his inputs. So thanking you, I'll be looking forward to more such opportunities to be a part of this sort of dialogues in future. And I wish all this, I wish this convention the very best. Thank you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rudra sir. Thank you a lot from MP's office and our partners from Sri University, Xavier University, and Kalinga Kusum Foundation. We are absolutely delighted to have you. We'll continue to have you to have your insights. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rudra.
So Manoj sir, coming back to you, as you are aware that MP sir's vision and also what Rudra sir was highlighting about awareness and everything. So I was because you have been working very in a sense involved and engaged in the child protection issue. Say again, to repeat that question, do you think we can actually eradicate or in a sense finally be over with violence against children? And there are different levels of violence. So what is your take? One is an abstract question of elimination of violence against children, and another is a practical question of minimizing it with a target, like saying this much percentage, like we do with maternal mortality rate. We do statistically looking at by this year we want to get down to this percentage. So do you think, what is the possibility of practically minimizing it to a level where it will be negligible?
Yeah. Eradicating violence on children completely, I do not see that can happen in the next 1 or 2 decades. But I can say that definitely we can minimize violence on children, adopting various legislatory approaches, various enactment approaches, various community strengthening approaches, various capacity development approaches, we can definitely minimize it. When I speak about harm or abuse on children, there are two sides to it. One is there is a likelihood of any harm on children or a child, and the child is experiencing or the child is undergoing real harm. There are two sides to any kind of harm or abuse or violence that happens on children. So if we can have a mechanism where the likelihood can be averted, can be eliminated, and if we can have a system where if any child is suffering from any kind of violence or abuse, the child can be rescued, restored, and rehabilitated. So these are two approaches. One is preventive and another is rehabilitative. For these two approaches, for the first approach, the law enforcing agencies and the judiciary plays a very important role. And for the second approach, the government and the district administrations and the urban local bodies and the Panchayati Raj institutions and the grassroots level cadres and the civil society at large has a role to play. So how this can happen? As I said earlier, we need to have a community cadre or a Gram Panchayat cadre at each level. Like we are having the Go Mitra, we are having the Gram Rozgar Sebak, we are having the Krushi Mitra, Bank Mitra, Chasi Mitra, plethora of Mitras. But have you ever heard of any Sisu Mitra in the Gram Panchayat? No, we do not have any Sisu Mitra in the Gram Panchayat or the Bal Mitra in the Gram Panchayat. So we need to create a cadre of Bal Mitras in every Gram Panchayat, with singular responsibility of reporting, restoring, rehabilitating, and creating a sense of security among children. We need to look at that at a very bigger level, at the policy level, at the legislator level, at the executive level, and also at the judiciary level. Now, coming to your specific question, can that be minimized? Yes, that can be minimized by 100% enforcement of existing laws, which is not happening. For example, you can see the increasing number of sexual abuse on children from the National Crime Records Bureau data. But if you see the conviction rate is not increasing at par with the rate of increase of the incidences or the violences. Why this is not increasing? Because many socio-cultural economic factors are associated with such crimes. So we need to address that. For example, if I do not have anything to lose, why should I fear the law? I should have a decent life, life with dignity. I have my own social identity, and I should have adequate education to fear the law. If I do not have adequate education, I do not have a roof over my head, I do not have 2 square meals to eat a day, I do not have my family, I do not have anything to lose, why should I fear the law? First, we will have to create that entitlement, create that standard of life. Then to decrease the incidences, you will have to create a sense of deterrent. How that deterrent can be created? If conviction rate increases, that deterrent can be, the sense of deterrent will be imbibed. Third, the structures. The structures, we are having the structure up to district level now. We need structures at the sub-district level as well, at the block level and the Gram Panchayat level. Fourth, we need to keep a surveillance on our law enforcement, which is the Honorable High Court is doing. They are supervising, they are monitoring the case pendencies at each level. So for that, we have created Sisu Mitra Adalats in every district. Now, as far as I know, there are 10 Sisumitra Adalats in 10 districts of Odisha, and we need to have Sisumitra Adalats in every district of Odisha, so that disposal of cases or the trial of cases can be accelerated. Then coming to your grassroots level, there should be some alarm system, some surveillance system where these likelihoods can be reported, where these likelihoods can be signaled. We can do that in two ways. One is to create children's club in every Gram Panchayat and sensitize children how they can discriminate between a good touch and a bad touch, how they can sense when there is a likelihood of any kind of abuse, violence, and danger. Then coming to the emergency outreach system, the emergency outreach system is not available at each Gram Panchayat level. So if you go to the very remotest places of the state, in our state, in other states, the emergency outreach system might not reach to the remotest parts. We need to create a pool of counselors or cadre of counselors, we should make counseling available to the last mile or last segment of the population. In a fingertips, in a click of a button, they should get the counseling services. So these are some of the suggestions, some of the activities, how we can eliminate, how we can reduce the number of violences through preventive approach. Now coming to the rehabilitative part, in rehabilitative part, we have a district level quasi judiciary structure that is called child welfare committee for each of the child in need of care and protection. So we have identified some 40 kinds of risks in Odisha that is happening on children, or the children are undergoing. 40 or 42 kinds of incidences, to be specific. So for all those 42 kinds of incidences, we have developed a matrix in a particular case, how the CWC will act, how the collector will act, how the police will act, how the judiciary will act, how the support system like district child protection units will act, what will be the role of childline, and how that child can be rescued, where the child should be produced before, how the child can be produced before the child welfare committee, and how the child welfare committee will pass an order to provide short-term shelter to the child in any child care institution. And from the child care institution with support sponsorship, that is 2,000 rupees per month, which can be given up to 3,000, providing that sponsorship amount, how the child can be restored back to the socio-cultural milieu of where he was or she was born. So now in the rehabilitative part, the 10 lakh rupees that is available for each district is inadequate. Like if for 3 years, I will commit my 10 lakhs as a district child protection officer, if I will commit my 10 lakhs for 40 children, then my funds exhaust for next 3 years. So if I want to give more sponsorship to children, those for preventive or rehabilitative, I do not have any funds at the exchequer. So how that's why I said we need to increase our spending on the system. So with these two approaches, we can minimize the cases to a larger extent, and for the remaining 10 to 20%, I little bit differ from what Rudra Babu said. He is not here, but let me tell you, the primary responsibility should be fixed on the parents itself, because the parents are the immediate and primary caregiver of any child. So if they are unable to provide food, shelter, and the basic needs for children, they should be held accountable for that. The 125 section of CRPC and many other acts are, many other statutory norms are available, and we need to, the system needs to enforce, enact those norms more stringently for to reduce the gap of that 10 to 20%. So we can have a multiple comprehensive approach to combat these social issue, social problem. Over to you, Kamala sir.
Yes, Manoj, thank you so much. Am I audible to you?
Yeah, you're audible.
Okay, right. So thank you, Manoj sir, for that. I think structurally giving an idea of the preventive and rehabilitative models. This is very insightful, and this is coming from a lot of experience in that sector. And before I go for question and answers, anyone has any feedback and questions, please either you raise your hand at chat, and you can do also unmute. And if you want me to unmute you, please ask for that. So that can be done. Before that, I would like for comments and thank you as well. If Sanjit sir is in a hurry, I think he has a meeting. He has from Kalinkusum and from MP office. I would request him to say offer the vote of thanks. And also, if he has questions and he's ready to engage, please feel free to do that, sir. So over to Sanjit sir.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Das, and good evening, everybody. At the outset, I must thank our Honorable MP, Sri Sujit Kumar, for his idea of organizing this global dialogue, and part of it this week-long seminar for children specifically. And today is the inaugural day for the week-long program. So we must thank him for his initiative. And I'm also thankful to Professor Das, who has been working hard to make all these things happen timely, and communicating with other people, pulling the resources, and then conducting this program. I'm also thankful to the team Kalinga Kusum Foundation and the team from the office of the MP Sri Sujit Kumar. And special thanks for today goes to Mr. Manoj Tripathi, the specialist of the day, and Mr. Rudra. Rudra is not now, but I must thank to both Mr. Manoj and Mr. Rudra for their specific contribution for today's discussion. And I can see Rusida from Dharmgad. Thank you for participating. Avinash from Kalahandi, and also I must thank Dr. S.N. Srinivas. I can see him attending this program from Delhi. He is the CEO from REC Foundation. We would obviously request for his contribution maybe in the next round of discussion. And also I would thank all the participants who are live watching through Facebook and other social media. So I would request Dr. Srinivas to contribute a couple of words.
Thank you so much. I've been listening to this particular subject. We do receive, I had CSR of REC Limited. We receive a lot of proposals, but unfortunately we have not received anything kind of related to this. We would be happy to consider a proposal, if whatever contribution that we can make, the innovative things that you're thinking of, and some pilot that you want to initiate. It is an important subject. At one point in time, I got some kind of a concept note from Kailash Satyarthi's office, but then it did not get pursued. But in any case, the subject is of great interest. Only one project that we have is from Mr. Vinayak Lohani, a Parivar Education Society, if I'm right on the name of the NGO. And apparently he has a very interesting story. I'm sure you have been in this sector. You would have heard about his story. And we in fact searched him and pulled him to submit a proposal because his work is so valuable to the society. Who will look after these children who are left out in the the railway platform or just to fend themselves? You are doing a really though honorable member of parliament was not happy with the participation, but I must say that those, even if few are there but who can really take it forward, would be very, very valuable, sir. And I personally, on behalf of REC CSR, would be happy to look at some initiative that we can support. Thank you so much, Sanjit, for giving me an opportunity to say a few words. Thank you. And in future, I'll be happy to participate. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Srinivas. And yes, just to brief you about the Kalinga Kusum Foundation, we have been working with support from UNICEF since last 3-4 years on child rights, and particularly empowering the member of Legislative Assembly in the state on issues around the children. So we'd be happy to send you a proposal. Maybe I will discuss with you separately on the concept, and then we can come up with the proposal. Thank you. Thank you for your support. And yes, Dr. Das, I think we can conclude this session.
Anyone else? Because anyone has any question or comment on the session? Thank you so much, Dr. Srinivas. I say you interesting. If you are in a position to do like that, we should all imbibe that spirit. Thank you, Dr. Srinivas, for doing that. Hrusikesh, sir, would you like to comment something?
Hello.
Yes, sir, we can hear you, sir.
Thank you for arranging so nice program during this Children's Week. And this is actually needed more participants, and now it is going on live in Facebook. And it will be a eye opener for all other grassroots level workers, those who are working in the child protection rights and other child issues. Thanks for this nice arrangement by the Kalinga Kusum Foundation and Honorable MP Sujit Kumar ji, and particularly you are coordinating Dr. Das, and we'll continue in more specific issues related to this child issues, so that it will be more fruitful for the aim it has masterminded. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anyone else, Avinash ji, anyone else has a point to make or say something? So that officially we have given the vote of thanks by Sanjit sir. I will say once more thank you to everyone. Yeah, Avinash ji.
Good evening all. My regards to all. And this is a great opportunity to speak few words before you all. So it's I think it's a good initiative from your end. And Honorable MP Sri Sujit Kumar sir, regarding this child issue. And I have done Avanta Nutrition Fellow for 2 years in Kalahandi regarding MCHN, Maternal Child Health and Nutrition. So I know a little bit. That's why I, throughout the entire webinar, I carefully listened all of you, and I deeply appreciate all of your thoughts, views, and suggestions regarding this issue. I think sustainable development goals have a uniqueness itself, and goal 1, 2, 3, 4, it's all related to child issues. And my concern is the reduction of malnutrition. That is more important, a vital point of the child between 0 to 5 years, where we are lacking pockets like tribal pockets like in Kalahandi, Thamul, Rampur. It may be in Kandhamal, it may be in Mayurbhanj. So we need to be focused on particularly in VHND sessions. We have to strengthen in VHND. We have to go and convince the tribals in their local dialects. So here's the BCC and communication lacks. I feel some youth should come up, some NGOs should come up, some CEOs should come up and initiate to and make bridge between the tribals, so they can understand the awareness and schemes of the government. They are still unaware regarding the women and child development schemes. So basically, I think it's a great initiative, and we are looking forward to work together. And I think I will be, if given an opportunity, I will be very proud to be part of this team. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Avinash ji. Thank you so much. And we are at the end of the session. So Sharmistha Pradhan is there. So would you like to add something? Any feedback, anything you would like to say? If we are audible to you. So, okay. So I think it is time to say thank you to everyone. Sanjit sir, thank you on behalf of the MPSR's office and on behalf of KK Kalinkusum's office for saying thank you. And let me take this opportunity to thank our partners, Sri University, Professor Subbara, who has been a partner, School of Sustainability at Xavier University, where Professor Suttappa Pati has been our partner, at Kalinkusum Foundation, the team, and at MP office, that includes Swadesh Kumar, that includes Sunil, that includes Sanjit sir, that includes me, and above all, to the MP, to the Honorable MP Sir Sujit Kumar, who actually conceptualized this program, saying that let's take the idea and connect Kalahandi and Cuttack and Kalahandi, Cuttack, and in New Delhi, and why not Washington? So Cuttack, everything connect. So connect Kalahandi to everywhere to the world. So he comes from there. His heart is in Kalahandi, and he wants to contribute. He has already adopted, decided to adopt 2 villages there. So we'll take it forward from the child. Whatever discussion we're having it here, it will have its impact on Kalahandi as well. Thank you, Dr. Srinivas. Thank you, Hrusikesh sir. Thank you, Avinash ji. Thank you, Sanjit Kumar ji. And we thank everyone. It was a fantastic discussion. And Manoj Tripathi ji, who is here, and Rudra sir, who left just because of another engagement. Manoj Tripathi ji, thank you so much for gracing the occasion and coming and enlightening all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.